Hi there, and welcome to video number 3 in the Demands and Struggles in the British Colony unit. Today we continue by asking the essential question, what were the causes of the rebellions? In order to show me that you have met the success criteria, you will be able to indicate the demands made in the 92 resolutions. You'll be able to indicate the main points of the Russell resolutions, and finally you'll be able to explain the short and long-term causes of the rebellions. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let's get started. So the essential question for today is, what were the causes of the rebellions? So to start out, I just want to remind you that at the end of last video we talked about the Parti Canadien now being called the Parti Patriote, which consisted of a more extreme wing of politicians and a more moderate wing. Regardless, that entire political party, the Parti Patriote, was led by this man right here. And this is an important figure at that time. He's really considered one of the most influential Canadien politicians of his time. And this is Louis Joseph Papineau. And he's an important figure to know. So he's the leader of the Parti Patriote. Okay. And so this gentleman right here, in 1834, encourages people to take the 92 resolutions to the Legislative Assembly and asks them to take them to the British government. So in 1834, the 92 resolutions are taken to the British government, and some of their major demands were that they felt as though the British government was really only favoring British landowners. And so what they really wanted was, they thought it was important to have an elected legislative council. They wanted more say in terms of budget, so they wanted to control a little bit more of how money was being spent in the colony. The 92 resolutions also wanted to protect French language and law. And so, in summary, they really just wanted more democracy in Lower Canada. They wanted more accountability, basically. To add to this, liberal ideas, which the Canadiens really held close to their hearts, actually began to gain a little bit of ground within the colony at large. Most people actually agreed with liberal values, and this is both Canadiens and British colonists. They actually all really agreed that liberalism was a great idea. And so the 92 resolutions were the focus of the election campaign that took place in 1834, and voters really began to attend popular meetings to demand the implementation of the 92 resolutions. So there was actually a lot of support for these 92 resolutions. In fact, there was so much support that the Parti Patriote won the election in the fall of 1834, and so London had to appoint a new governor, a man by the name of Lord Gosford, who was given the task of studying the Patriots' demands. So, if we actually fast forward to 1837, the British government in London actually finally replies to the demands of the 92 resolutions in the form of the 10 resolutions, which can also be known as the Russell resolutions. So, at that time, the Lord John Russell, who was like the British minister who was responsible for the colony, he puts in his Russell resolutions, which is basically just one big fat no. They basically say no to everything the 92 resolutions asked or demanded of them. So they reject the 92 resolutions, and also, to sort of add insult to injury, if things weren't bad enough that they just rejected the demands, they also authorize the colony's administration to actually take money from the Legislative Assembly's subsidies. So those subsidies are those taxes that the Legislative Assembly was able to gain. We talked about that last class. Remember how the governor had a debt and he wanted to use the subsidies that the Legislative Assembly had to pay off his debt? Well, those subsidies were, in fact, some of the money from that was actually taken from the Legislative Assembly. So, all that being said, the fact that it took 3 years to reply to the 92 resolutions, and The fact it took that long, and the fact they rejected every single request, and also took money in the form of subsidies from the Legislative Assembly, added to a lot of conflict. So the tensions and feelings grew even more bitter, and now you get some Canadiens members beginning to consider taking more violent action to finally get their demands heard. So now we'll just discuss a couple of more causes that led to rebellion. So the last one we'll discuss also takes place in 1837. And the last one is you have the Parti Patriote, who at that time began to meet in open spaces. So basically had like general public meetings where they would basically get together and they agreed to denounce the Russell resolutions. So basically you have the governor, which at that time was Lord Gosford, Governor Gosford, I apologize. And if you remember, the Parti Patriote sent the 92 resolutions to him. He replied 3 years later with the Russell resolutions, which rejected everything. Well, in 1837, the Parti Patriote takes the Russell resolutions and says, we refuse to follow those. And we are going to stop, we're going to boycott all imported goods from Great Britain. So in July, Governor Gosford, who fears an uprising, decides to ban all popular meetings for the Parti Patriote, which means now the Parti Patriote is no longer allowed, they're no longer permitted to get together and discuss their ideas. In response to that, the Parti Patriote refuses to approve Governor Gosford's budget when it comes time to discuss his budget. So the Parti Patriote is no longer allowed to meet, and so when the governor comes time to create his budget of how he's going to spend his money, the Parti Patriote says, no, we don't approve of the way you're going to spend your money. All that being said, what this leads to is in September of that same year, so we're talking 1837, so after all that takes place, you actually see Gosford finally grow so frustrated that what he does is he completely takes away the Legislative Assembly, a process known as denouncing them, which means taking away their power. So this is the final cause for the rebellions. That's the end of video number 3. I hope you enjoyed it. But before going, I just wanted to do a quick recap of today's lesson. First, by asking once again our essential question, what were the causes of the rebellions? In order to show me that you have understood the concepts we looked at today, you should be able to indicate the demands made in the 92 resolutions. You should be able to indicate the main points of the Russell resolutions. And finally, you need to be able to explain the short and the long-term causes of the rebellions. Thanks and have a good day.